All right, we got a live one today and a lot of ground to cover. We got the new one today from Mode. This is the Sonnet, their new 75. The new configurator is live, unlimited pre-sales are now open, and this should be fulfilling sometime in October. We have a couple different case materials and aesthetic options today, plus a half-plate solder build and a hot swap build. Tragically, only polycarb for plate options. As is normally the case with Mode, this is all pre-production stuff, so I do have to surrender all of this at the conclusion of this video. This isn't sponsored in any way. I don't even get to keep anything you see today, and that will be an important detail at the end of this video. So the layout here is a compact 75%, meaning we do have a dedicated F-row, but the arrows are still tucked in with a little blocker like we'd see on a 65 versus being exploded like on a Mammoth 75 or the GMMK Pro. This results in a board that's a little taller, but almost 2 inches or 5 centimeters less wide than your average TKL. I can see how the blocker may be a symmetry issue for some, but I really like this layout. I personally prefer it to something like a KBD 75 where all the keys are just kind of on one solid grid, even though it is a slightly larger footprint than a board like that. I also really like that they've reduced the forehead bezel from the Mode 80, and they've included this accent bar here that helps break up that area even more. This is purely aesthetic. It fits flush to the case, so it's not functional as like a pin rail or anything. The base price luckily is lower than what we saw on the 80. This is going to start at $299, and that's going to yield a board that's mostly black, all aluminum with an accent bar and an internal weight. You also get your PCB, your daughter board, a stabilizer lube syringe, love to see this, a screwdriver, a puller, all your fasteners, your case feet, and your plate caps. Not included here are keycaps, switches, stabilizers, a carry case, or even a cable. So this is about as bare bones gets. Mode, of course, will gladly sell you most of that as add-ons. Optional internal add-ons include the silicone base, which I did get, and a plate foam, which I did not. Like Mode's previous boards, the price varies wildly when you start selecting more exotic materials, like the accent bar. Gray, black, or gold are included, but you go with a multicolor stainless steel and you add $25, while the premium accents go for $40. The same holds true with the internal weight. The included black feels like it's made from aluminum. It's very light at like 207 grams, so it's not really a weight, it's more of an insert. Any other option will get you for a $50 upcharge, like the multicolor stainless, which is a hefty 595 grams. That's a weight. Interestingly, this is properly finished only on the visible side, similar to the QK65. The thing about this internal weight is that it's completely hidden from view when it's fully assembled in every configuration except the frosted PC lowercase. And if you decide to go with that frosted poly lower, the ugly unfinished side is the side that's visible. They really need to consider fixing this for the final. So logic would tell you stick with the base price because you're not going to see it anyway. But because they've chose to go with aluminum in the base kit, you're not going to feel it either. So if you want added weight, you're going to eat that $50 upsell anyway. I can't tell you to without subjecting you to 8 or 9 different sound tests today. There doesn't seem to be any acoustic difference at all between going with that aluminum insert or going with that stainless weight. That price variance also holds true of coatings on the upper and lower. Anything but black is an automatic $10, and the white we have here, which I think is E-white, will get you for $15 on the top frame alone. Same situation on the bottom case, but you can go really wild here. Frosted polycarb starts at $40, silver mirror aluminum at $100, and the premium brass and copper options at $240 and $250. On the topic of that frosted PC lower, the board features no RGB or LED diodes at all, so you're not going to be lighting it up like you'd usually see with the frosted PC lower. That's a miss for me. I get that Mode has a certain aesthetic that they go for, but they could have left out the RGB, just gone with some cool white diodes in there. Still would have looked class and wouldn't have looked too gamer. It does include metal thread inserts for the daughter board and the weight, which I do like to see. So you can play around with the configurator to cost out your build. I imagine most buyers are going to land somewhere between $399 and $449 depending on your accent bar. Fit and finish on all the parts they sent out is really nice. Mode boards are also some of the easiest to assemble that have come through here. This uses that lower lip clamshell attachment method like the 65. This only leaves 2 visible screws on the underside of the board. Pretty clean. They're also usually pretty minimal on the side profile of the board, but here they've gone with a really elegant curve. This not only looks nice, but it allows for really easy pickup and movement of the board. This is something I've criticized them for in the past, and I love the response here, giving us some interesting geometry without compromising their minimal aesthetic on the top-down view. Great job. Mounting options are the usual isolated top mount using these little silicone caps on the plate tabs, and the stack mount, which uses the optional silicone dampener. The dampener traditionally gives us a firmer typing feel and a more dampened sound. They were nice enough to pre-solder this half plate build complete with stabs to save me some time. The solder PCB has flex cuts, the hot swap does not. As usual, a beautiful job on the PCB from designer Gondolindrum. Both the solder and the hot swap provide options for stepped caps as well as a 6.25 or 7U spacebar layout. The solder version includes additional options for split left shift, split backspace, and ISO support. Full plate options support ISO as well, but the half plate is ANSI only. Of course, both PCBs also support QMK and VIA. Since they've gone with lubed versions of their Mode Reflex linear switch, which is the Durock JWK linear recolor and Durock V2 6.2 stabs. We'll keep that same energy in the hot swap build as well, so it will be as apples to apples as we can get it. Their half-plate setup is still one of my favorite typing experiences in all of keyboards. I'm a really heavy typer and it's got a perfect amount of flex for me. The first time I tried it with their FR4 plate, and I think I like the feel better on the polycarb plate, but I like the sound better on the FR4. Regardless, the flex never feels too flabby or out of control like your mom, and coupled with that flat 5.5 degree angle and 19mm front height, it's really comfortable for me to type on for long periods. I didn't really notice any sound or feel difference going with the polycarb lower versus the aluminum, so I would just stick with the aluminum. I don't personally see paying the upcharge for that polycarb. There's obviously a difference in feel between the full plate hot swap and the half. It's clearly firmer when you're using the hot swap with the full plate. There's a difference in sound there as well. It's obviously more controlled. I think it's more consistent across the board, and the mods are definitely a lot higher pitched. The dampener functions exactly as advertised. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference to the flex when using that hot swap PCB with no flex cuts in a full plate. It does make a big difference to the sound. It cancels out all that hollowness and low end. It just leaves you with a really sharp high-end clack. I'd probably skip on this too. I actively tried not to completely drill the board in these sound tests today, but I really wish they'd sent some plate variety because everything with the polycarb sounds really clacky to me. It's not my favorite. I can't say for sure it's a clacky board since this is the only plate I have, but everything sounds really plastic on plastic clack with the polycarb plate. I will say I much prefer it with the 6.25U spacebar setup too, both aesthetically and sound-wise. For value, I'm gonna have to cost it around $425 because that will get you some color options, mid-range accents, and a weight without going completely ham on the upsells. But that gets you options on a board that starts at $299. Remember, the Mode 80 started at $459, so this feels better. It's a strong contender. The 75% market doesn't have a lot of competition right now because the great 75s are largely ungettable unless you want to pay dearly for stuff like the 7V, the Jelly, the Satisfaction 75. I put this over the Mammoth 75. That board always felt like entry-level internals inside a real fancy case. The build was fiddly. This is a much more straightforward build. For the mid-tier and up, in stock right now is limited to like the obliterated 75 from Canon Keys. That has a lower price point, but it's also a much more basic design. I think the real competition right now might be the Hope 75. The premium models include a PVD lower at $459 and you get RGB on the back. It's definitely a look, but the Sonnet aims for that clean, minimal aesthetic, and it definitely achieves that. The Hope 75 is in group buy right now. It's slated to start shipping in October. I didn't get one of these boards. It kind of flew under my radar. The Sonnet is also slated to start shipping in October, which is also Q4. I don't know what kind of verbiage Mode is using for the unlimited presale, but taking money up front for something that comes 4 months later feels like a group buy. A shorter group buy, but it still feels like a group buy. I think that given the market, the Sonnet is a solid W. They just better hope QWERTY Keys is not over there working on a 75% after watching them absolutely murder the 65% market recently on price point. There are some things like that multi-stainless weight frosted PC lower combo that they should get sorted, but overall a really class look, tons of customization, and you have options both for how you want your board to feel and sound. I love the clean layout, the minimal footprint, and it is dead easy to build. I do wish that Mode would include some extras like a carry case or a cable, or even stabilizers, something to make you feel better about spending the money and not make you feel like you're getting nickel and dime to death for add-ons. Like I said at the top of the video, I have to return all of this when the video is over. Mode is the only keyboard company that ever asked me to do this, which means if I want one, I have to buy it myself. And I would. I definitely would buy this board in spite of everything I have here already, and I think that says a lot. I will leave the configurator code that I would use for my personal build so you can check that out. That's it for today. I will catch you all in the next one. Stay up.